Good afternoon, sir. This
Good afternoon. Namaste, namaste. Good afternoon.
sir, can we start, sir?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Good afternoon. A warm welcome to 12th Golden Jubilee lecture on relocation, an answer to conservation, experiences from the Kali Tiger Reserve, Uttar Kannada district by Professor R. Indira. And then a warm welcome to Professor Sukhdev Thorat, Chairman of Board of Governors, Professor Indira, Professor Lakshmana, and my young colleague Tirupati, and all faculty members, students, and other distinguished participants. Welcome to you, Sodi Saab. So he is also joining us. So several people are joining. And just for those people who have joined only for this lecture, I just would like to tell you that the Institute for Social and Economic Change has completed 50 years, and then we are celebrating Golden Jubilee year. So as a part of Golden Jubilee year, we have planned and we are implementing several programs. Of them, Golden Jubilee lecture series is very important. And then in addition, we have Golden Jubilee thematic seminars and several review meetings, students meetings, and so on and so forth. So we have today, as I already mentioned, this is the 12th lecture, and then a few more are planned, and then these are held once in a fortnight. And then we are very happy that Professor Indira will be making a presentation today. And then I will not be introducing, and I will be requesting my colleague and then Professor Lakshmana to introduce her, so that afterwards.
Thank you, Professor Rajshekhar. Friends, good afternoon to everyone. I am very happy to be here to introduce today's speaker and our honorable board member of ISEC Society, Professor R. Indira, for this 12th Golden Jubilee lecture series. Friends, Professor R. Indira is a renowned scholar, eminent speaker, and a very good writer. He has made significant contribution to the society in general and the subject of sociology in particular. Professor R. Indira, currently visiting professor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Chair, University of Mysore, was formerly professor and chairperson of the Department of Sociology, honorary director of the Center for Women Studies, and director of the international programs at the University of Mysore. She was the past president of Indian Sociological Society as well as the past president of Karnataka Sociological Society. She is an outstanding personality in the teaching, was invited faculty in the School of Social Science, Ramaya University of Applied Science, Bangalore, and also SDM Institute of Management Science, Mysore. We know she is a member of the Board of Governors of the Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, Research Advisory Council of Stella Maris College, and many other research organizations. Besides having been on the advisory boards of Special Assistance Program of Jawaharlal University, Shivaji University, Osmania, and Annamalai Universities. She has been a visiting fellow at Delhi University and a scholar in residence at Bangalore and Coimbatore Universities. 27 students have been awarded PhD under her able guidance. Professor R. Indira is a two-time Fulbright scholar, four-time Shastri Fellow, and a Senior Fellow of ICSSR. She has been a visiting faculty at the Study India program of the universities of Puget Sound, Iowa, Cornell, Delaware, Princeton, Michigan and Florida International University in the US, and also Mount Allison, Concordia, Guelph universities in Canada. Her research work with forest-dependent communities in the Joida region of Uttar Kannada in Karnataka is highly recognized with a special focus on women empowerment, initiated many reforms in a region that had been sidelined by the development project for several decades. Dr. Indira has authored several books and articles in the reputed peer-reviewed national and international journals, edited volumes and newspapers, both in English and Kannada, and has been a contributor and editor to subject of encyclopedias, even dictionaries, journals, etc., theme-based books and translation projects, and has been confirmed literary awards and recognition for her works on social issues. Apart from, she is a well-known columnist whose fortnightly column in Vasadari, published in the leading Kannada daily Prajavani, brought to the public domain, highlighting many issues of sociological significance, and continues to be cited in many works on related themes. Dr. Indira Madam also is a column Manushi published in Praja Nudi daily from Mysore, Samajamukhi, currently being published in Mysore Mitra, have also drawn attention to issues of contemporary relevance. These are all in Kannada. Among her recent works are the English Kannada glossary in sociology, published by the National Translation Mission as consultant editor, and English Kannada glossary in gender studies as chief editor. Currently in the publication process, Dr. Indira has lectured extensively in universities, college and civil society platforms across the country. She has total 42 years of post-graduation teaching experience in the University of Mysore. She took several international academic assignments and visited many countries in the academic endeavor. The visited countries are South Africa, Canada, USA, France, Sweden, Dubai, Maldives, and Turkey. Professor Indira has also designed several courses not only for Indian universities but also international universities. She is the member of Board of Studies for almost 10 universities, more than 10 universities in India. She prepared and presented several video presentations on various social issues such as education, society, and gender. Professor Indira Madam also has many video series on society of gender in Karnataka, which are all available in YouTube links. Madam's achievements are also available with Wikipedia. This is all her academic achievements. Friend, she is not only good academician, but also she is a good decision maker. And as you know, I had an opportunity to work with Professor Indira in the last BOG. She took always, I was impressed by the way of her intervention and discussion in the policy making body in order to provide justice for genuine issues. So today we have an opportunity, such an immense speaker. She is going to deliver a lecture. So today we have an opportunity to listen her speech as a part of the Golden Jubilee lecture series. Looking forward to you, madam. Now I over to Professor D. Rajshekhar. Thank you, everyone.
Madam, we have now changed from bouquets to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can get some fresh oxygen or something like that. Sir, would you like to say anything beginning of the lecture, sir?
No, not quite specific, but we are happy that one of our board member, Professor Indira, is delivering a good lecture on the view of the Golden Jubilee of the Institute. And we all really look forward to listen to her. So let us begin.
So over to you, madam. So, yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon to all of you. Chairman, sir, Professor Sukhdev Thorat, Professor Rajshekhar, Director, Professor Lakshmana, and all my colleagues, friends, and students. Thank you very much for this opportunity to deliver the ISEC's Golden Jubilee lecture as part of the series initiated by the institution. Of course, my association with ISEC dates back to several years when I was in the University of Mysore, and I have come here on quite a few occasions. Now, this is an opportunity to be part of the board and also to keep coming to this institution, which we always saw with awe as young faculty in the university. And I remember the happiness that we used to experience when we got an invitation to come and participate in any event here. So thank you very much. Well, I chose to speak on this topic, relocation of families from relocation. Is it an answer to conservation? And this study that my talk would be based on is located in the Kali Tiger Reserve in Uttara Kannada district of Karnataka. Well, I know that ISEC has done excellent work on environmental issues, and your policy papers, that I was just going through and I have used in my works many times. They all speak of different dimensions of environmental concerns, and a lot of work has already been done here. So I must straight away say that whatever I'm going to say today, or everything that I'm going to say today, may not be something that is completely new and not known to anybody. But I would say that this topic is very, very dear to my heart, because I have worked in this region on which my talk would be focused, and continue to work there. I've been working there for the last 2 decades in different contexts. So when Professor Akshekar asked me to do this, I thought that I could use this opportunity to just share some of my experiences of working with forest-dependent communities in this region. Now, why I focus on relocation, there is a specific reason for that, because today we are both in Mysore and Kodagu districts, and also in this has already happened in Bhadra Tiger Reserve in Shimoga district. But in Mysore also, in the last couple of months, we have these national parks, known as the Bandipur National Park and Nagarhole Tiger Reserve, where these issues of relocation have been constantly coming up. Those people who have been relocated to different settlements are protesting very strongly, because they feel that the purpose with which they relocated has not been achieved due to various reasons, and we can talk about that later. So this slide gives an idea of the format of my lecture today. What is it that I'm going to say? I've divided it into these subheads. First, the background. I just want to speak for a few minutes about my association with Uttara Kannada district, how it all began and why it all began. Because I live in Mysore and I've been working in Mysore University. So why did I go there and how did I go there is something that I would like to share with you. And why am I going to talk of relocation? I think I've already said that it is one of the issues that are bothering us today. There are, of course, extreme points of view on whether people should be relocated from forest areas or whether they should be allowed to stay where they are. And what I have myself noticed that in the recent past, this is nothing new, but staying in Mysore, every day now for the last couple of months, when you open the newspaper, one of the first items of news that catches your attention is human-animal conflict, attack. Now they've even started coming to Mysore. Tigers, leopards, and elephant attacks have become so common. I know that, for example, you see the official statistics puts deaths due to trampling by elephants in Kodagu around 6 or 7, but that is not true. It is much more than that. I know for certain it's about 30 plus. This has happened in the recent past. So in that context, I think it's not the only reason why people want to relocate or they are building an argument for relocation. But should that happen? Should it not happen? We are, not the ones to give our judgment. But I think that it is an issue that needs to be discussed in very great detail. And then I just want to talk about the four concepts: relocation, conservation, rehabilitation, displacement. Because in this order on relocation, the state does not use the word displacement. It uses the word rehabilitation, because the impression that they want to give is relocation results in rehabilitation. Whether it has done so or not, whether it will do so or not, what are the experiences of people who have already relocated? Some of those points I wish to bring out in my study. And the next is, of course, as I said, there has been a great deal of work done on environmental issues across the country and in different parts of the world. And it's not really possible to focus on all those studies. But for the purpose of this particular presentation that I want to make today, I just chose a few studies. And I would like to just say the essence of their work in tiger reserves or in what are called protected areas. And then I go to the key questions. What are the questions that I have raised in this lecture? And I seek answers to those questions. And I have a study framework. I'll just first have to talk a little about the locale where this study is located and who are the people, because there cannot be relocation without people. And then how did I get access to the data? And I would like to close by raising a few points for I call it always say the way forward, because, no research is an end in itself and we should keep going on. So this is roughly the format for my work. So I'll start by I hope, spending about 5 to 8 minutes on why I went to Uttara Kannada and how I got associated with that. Because today the Kali Tiger Reserve, about which I want to speak, is located in that district of Karnataka. Uttara Kannada, is known as the forest district. According to available data sources, 80% of that area is connected, is forest area. And Uttara Kannada has 11 talukas, of which 5 are in the coastal belt and 6 are on the ghats. And so my association with that district began way back in 1997, when the Joint Forest Planning and Management Program was introduced. This program, which was introduced by the Government of India in 90s, was it was the resultant, shall I say, action of the National Forest Policy of 1988. And the concept of JFPM, as the name itself suggests, you see, the word that catches our attention here is Joint Forest Planning and Management. So when you say joint, who are the people who have joined in this effort? The people and the state. Otherwise, the forests, ever since colonial times, have always been known to be under the control of the state. And many times the idea that was advocated was that conservation or forest protection takes place if people are shut out. And it looked as if community issues were not involved in conservation issues. Even today, when we talk of environment, we mostly talk of the flora, fauna, animals, or plants and other issues. So, but however, we have argued, social scientists especially have always argued that there cannot be conservation or environmental protection without people. And environment is not just about plants and animals. It's also about achieving a coordination between the different components of the natural resources. So when the Joint Forest Planning and Management Program began, there was also a lot of funding that came from other countries, especially DFID from UK was one of the agencies that got involved with this program. And one of the issues that at that point of time was considered important was sensitizing forest bureaucracy, which was of course involved in a big way in taking this program forward, to issues of gender. And so one of the, and that responsibility was given to Maratha, which is, quite a well-known NGO that has been working in forest regions in Mysore district as well as in Uttar Kannada. So when my friends from there came and asked me, if I could come and speak on questions of gender, why it was necessary to have that perspective in forestry programs, I said yes. I was happy because that was the first ever opportunity that I got to meet forest bureaucracy. And so but I must say in that region, before that, I had done some work with the same organization in Nagarhole National Park, in Bandipur Tiger Reserve, where, they were looking at issues of relocation or, the projects that were initiated to give them alternate sources of energy, to stop using the forest or carry, where they used to carry headloads, etc. So this program was organized at a place called Tatihalla in Uttar Kannada district, where they have a forest training institute. And to cut a long story short, I went there, and on day one, there was a lot of fight. It was not even discussion or debate or dialogue, it was fight. Because most of the people who were there, started arguing with me, and they said, what do we have to learn from those women? I even remember one person telling me, I'm a botany PhD, do you want me to learn from that illiterate woman, what kind of plants I should plant or things like that. So I, of course, kept my calm. And then by the end of the third day, we had become good friends, I should say. And then I said, you see, don't have those. They were completely rooted in patriarchy, number one. Second, they did not want, only few people, I think so. With my little experience, I can say the whole idea of involving people in conservation, involving people in management of forest resources. The word thrust here is on the word management. So was not welcome to everybody. But then, these programs went on. And I did go to different parts of Uttar Kannada district to meet different cadres of forest bureaucracy and talk to them primarily about gender issues. And that was also around the time when the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute invited proposals for collaborative projects between Canada and India. And I submitted my proposal initially, and it was one of my friends who suggested, anyway, you have now gone to that area, why don't you talk about your forestry programs, involvement of women? And I'm happy to say that in the second stage of the work, I got to meet Professor Karima Ali Kassam, my Canadian research partner, who was at that time at the University of Calgary. He's now at Cornell. And together we submitted a joint proposal, which was one of the 12 that was accepted finally out of 365 proposals that were submitted from these two countries. So he was looking at, we looked at the role of women in forestry programs. That was a broad title of our work. And initially people used to ask me, what is this? Is it possible to compare what's going on in Canada with India? Aren't conditions different? Yes, of course, there are different conditions, but many issues we found were same. From then on, Kareem and I worked on this SIDA Shastri, it was called Canadian International Development Agency, Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute project. Both of us again got a second project called the Shastri Applied Research Project. And we decided, both of us decided, that whenever we are working together, we concentrate on that region. Instead of going from one place to the other, changing field locales, we will do that. And I must say that it was from him almost 20 years ago that I learned the nuances of what he called the participatory research methodology. When I went to Canada for the first time and he took me to his field, which was in the Northwest Territories in Hay River, that was a kind of subarctic region. I could see that the community people were involved in that research, something, which I didn't understand very clearly at that point of time, coming from a system where you cannot have interns, research associates, research assistants, etc. without an academic background, but they were doing it there. And when I came back to India, it was he who suggested to me, why don't we take some of the local youth here in Joida in our project? And I was not sure whether that would be accepted, but finally my university said, as long as your sponsors don't mind, it is fine with us. And I'm happy to say one of the local youth, because even today we are working together. And he joined our project, and afterwards he did his master's in sociology and got his PhD 3 years ago, working under my guidance on natural resource management and people's participation. He was from this place called Deria. And lastly, this action research project also is a Shastri endeavor, which I got because it was supposed to be a need-based project in response to the needs of the region. So we worked with 80 women representatives who were elected to Gram Panchayat Taluk and Jilla Panchayat in Joida Taluk. And so this is how, my association with Uttar Kannada began. And because of the connections we established with people, even today, our engagement with the local communities continues. And so that's how, when Kali Tiger, I've already been to that area, but when Kali Tiger Reserve was declared and this whole issue of relocation came up, when they started moving people out, when a couple of my own contacts there, my friends, my students, my community interns were involved in different capacities in those projects, this interested me, and that is the brief background. Now, now go to my next question. Why relocation? Why did we get interested in this? Why was our research team interested in this? See, I would say Joida has a history of nearly 40 years of relocation, not of just people, wildlife. Why we are talking of relocation from forest communities today, but as early as 1970s, when the first dam was built on River Kali, which flows through that region. Now 5 dams have been built. A lot of displacement of villages and land, forest land and agricultural land getting submerged has happened. So when we started visiting this area for our work and also built contacts, initially, I must tell you, there was a lot of resistance from the local communities. When we started our work, one day, the leader of one of the local communities was very angry with me. He almost, beat me up. And then he said, of course, and this is a region which is located very close to Goa. It's many of the parts of Joida are just on the borders of Goa. So you can even walk from one part of Joida to some parts of Goa that are close by. And so they speak mostly Konkani, especially the first generation. So, and women were not at all allowed even to talk to strangers. So he was very angry with me that I wanted to work on women. And I remember he pushed all the women into the house. He said, don't talk to her because we don't want strangers. He said, go away. But I remember the person who came with me, a friend, who took me there to this village called Deria, where all our work got started. He told me, don't get disheartened. If these people realize that whatever work you are going to do is, very sincere and genuine, they will definitely be with you. You can mark my words. And that is exactly what happened when they came to know that we had no other intentions. And I must tell you, related to this topic today, that was also the time, this was in 1998, 99, that period, when this talk of relocation had just started. So many people thought that, we were agents of that agency which was trying to take them out of the forest. But anyway, all those issues were sorted out. But what I want to tell you is that relocation, when we say relocation, it's not just from forest to outside. Displacement of human populations in that region has been taking place for more than 40 years now. And when the dams were built on River Kali, about 55 villages got submerged. And as I have my information, 1,400 square kilometers of land was gone. So when forest land was submerged, it is automatically understood that livelihood bases were taken off, their livelihood security was gone. And wherever now wildlife sanctuary and national parks are being formed, you see, the first thrust is on protection. So basically in this area, the formation of the wildlife sanctuary and the national park, like there was this Anshi Dandeli Tiger Reserve, they've all been merged. I'll just show you the picture later. So these reserves were envisaged to bring back tiger. Tiger population had almost become extinct. But just last week, my student was here in Mysore and he was telling me that now from only 2 tigers in the region, it has now become 28. And he was saying that probably within the next 6-8 years, we will have many more tigers all over the place. So the main objective was to bring back the tiger, that is what they said. And so Kali Tiger Reserve, it affected the livelihood of inhabitants of 151 hamlets. And that is important because when the Kali Tiger Reserve was declared, there are as many as 151 hamlets. In Joida, it's a unique kind of a situation. It's Karnataka's largest taluk in terms of geographical area. And the surprising thing is many people have not even heard of that. Somebody used to ask me once, is it in Canada? I said, no, it's not in Canada. It is very much there in our state. And everybody, of course, knows about Dandeli, because Dandeli has the jungle lodges and resorts. People know about it, but they don't know about Joida. And but it is not a densely, the forest is dense, but not human habitations. So here, actually, when in one of our studies, when we decided to use the participatory methodology, what we used to do is whenever a project started, we used to have a meeting with the local people. And when we had one such meeting, when the Shastri Applied Research Project started, I asked, our friends who had all got together for a meeting, I have a project like this. Is there anything you want us to do? And one teacher there, a primary school teacher, he said, he didn't use this word, but what he said was, can you create an infrastructure profile of this region? We don't know what we have. We don't know what we don't have. All we know is we keep on hearing our region is very, sorry, I'm not using this word, but he said it's backward. It doesn't have infrastructure. We have no roads, no connectivity, no school, no electricity, nothing. So what can you do this for us? I said, of course, let's try. And we did that. And with the local people, the whole data has been validated by local people, and they were the ones who were part of this effort we made. 456 human habitations they have identified, and we have published that. And we gave it back to people. Now that document has been widely shared with panchayats, with state officers, with people, with communities, and they saw that as power. And I think this is what research is about, information, not just for, being documented in books or other on paper, but we share it anyway. We shared it with the people. So what happened, what interested me always was that the people in that region, by and large, today, of course, 10 years down the line, 20 years, afterwards, when I go back there, we see that a large number of changes have taken place. However, this new challenge which that area has been now confronting is the formation of the tiger reserve, people being brought outside. Now, why I talked about the human habitations was that, you see, in this particular area, earmarked as Kali Tiger Reserve, there are about 151 human habitations. Some are very tiny hamlets where there are only 4 to 5 houses. Some are, of course, relatively large villages. Initially, they said why this did not become a big issue. When a tiger reserve is being declared, there is a lot of protest that comes because people know that they will be sent out. But here, when they announced it, they said that we are not including the human habitations. The borders of the tiger reserve will be formed in such a way that, the human habitations will be excluded. And that is why there wasn't a big people's protest. However, there are several settlements that have come inside the forest area. Also, there are many on the borders. So this is the situation of the Kali Tiger Reserve. And now coming back to what I want to say here in this particular talk of mine, as I said, used 4 concepts. One is conservation, because my title is relocation the answer to conservation? Because today the policy has been arguing that only when you take people outside, and they don't say it's good just for the forest, it is good for the people as well, is their argument. Now for us it is important to ask, is it, how good is it? We'll come to that. Then relocation, the 4 concepts. Conservation is protection of natural resources. In that context, this word has been used in my own presentation. And of course, relocation is, taking people to an alternate living space. They are in the forest or on its borders, and relocating them means whether you relocate families, whether we relocate entire villages, we'll come to that later. There are different schemes here, but relocation means the act of moving people from one place to another. And rehabilitation, as I told you, that's a big question mark. And there has been a lot of criticism against the use of that word. But the state which promotes relocation of inhabitants of national parks wants to argue that relocation will bring about rehabilitation. Whether it has brought, whether it will bring, what kind of rehabilitation it has brought, I personally think that rehabilitation is a patronizing word. But whether it has really happened or not is for us to find out. And lastly, they don't use the word displacement. I was told that consciously that word has been avoided because, when you say displacement, it means that it is forced. But they want to argue that it is voluntary. See, voluntary versus forced migration. That is the kind of theoretical context in which we have to examine this issue of relocation. So these are the 4 concepts in the context of which we have to understand this whole issue. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there have been a number of studies on this theme, but I just chose these because some of them have worked on 1 or 2 in reserves in Karnataka, and of course the others on other tiger reserves. Now, I can't go into each one of them because that itself will take a time. But very quickly, I like to bring out the essence. What have these studies said? Because they have talked of relocation. All of them have focused on relocation, and I have already said that these are not the only ones. There are others. So I'll quickly say, from saying that forests would be dehumanized if relocation happens, to not rejecting it outright, these studies have tried to put forth their lines of thoughts. One is that, you see, in the beginning, those who chose to relocate were quite fascinated with the idea because they thought that relocation gives them better opportunities to achieve their dreams, better standards of living can be thought of, etc. But what all these studies are trying to show, and I must say what our experience also has shown, is that by giving, 15 lakhs, 10 lakhs, as the case may be, as one-time payment or two-time payment, the lives of people are not made. So one of the main points that these studies on relocation have raised is that hand-holding, as they are calling it, should be in a more sustainable manner. You just give one-time cash payment, whether they buy land, whether they buy a house, or whether they invest in some kind of business, is not enough to sustain them and their livelihoods. And the other thing is, they don't completely reject relocation. They say it's a viable alternative, but then what kind of alternative are we looking for? Not something that doesn't include people's perspectives, not something that doesn't doesn't ask them what is it that you want, because mostly this is a state imposed, state planned kind of a program. So what the other point that these studies on relocation, majority of them have tried to make, is that we should not, limit relocation if at all we think that it is a viable alternative. And they agree that in the case of many communities, core critical forests, for example, where, there is attack by wild animals, even if they grow some food, very next day it comes and attacks. And, I think we also, like, we have learned, just like human beings, we have learned the art of survival. It's a something to be seen, to be believed. How, whether you have an electric fence or whatever you dig pits, how elephants negotiate those restrictions and try to take control. So there are many who cannot live there anymore. And there's also one line of thinking that the core forest cannot take any more of human pressure. So these studies are not completely rejecting relocation, but they're saying the way in which it is being done, it is without involving people, without continued support, is not really the right thing to do. And also, other question that has been raised here is, how voluntary is voluntary relocation? Is it really voluntary? Or are the inhabitants of tiger reserves and protected areas being pushed to a state where they have to go? See, they, especially in Kali Tiger Reserve, they cannot be forced. Nobody can tell them you have to go. But the kind of pressures that are brought on them, and when you take out even life-sustaining support systems, they have no other choice but to go. And so the other thing which I consider as very important is, like, alternate ways of livelihood also should be provided, maybe skill diversification, or need for identifying their talents, either creating new skills or building new, or strengthening skills they already have. These are not being really done, because as of now, the plan as it is being operated is limited to giving the money and getting them out, and then not following it up. So one idea that you get from most of the studies on relocation is that there is no follow-up. And people are not feeling included, but they are being excluded from the whole idea of conservation. And the other important thing, and I consider this very important, and that is why I'm bringing it up here, is that there is a feeling that social scientists have not engaged with this whole issue of relocation, documenting pre and post relocation experiences in different locales to the extent that it should have been done. In fact, some studies are saying social scientists have not done anything. So I am also, I feel that I'm bringing this up consciously in ISEC, because this an institution that has done enormous work on environmental issues. Of course, there are, I know, some policy papers, studies on national parks, should also take this up and follow up on what happened to people. So now this is just in essence the opinions expressed by these studies. Now I next move on to what is this relocation, voluntary relocation program that is right now in operation in Kali Tiger Reserve. There are two types of programs that are now on. One is the package. I don't like that word personally, but that's what they're using in official records. The opportunity to leave the Tiger Reserve is given to families, and this is on payment of money. And it is left to the individual families to decide to go out or no. But the second option is, it is a responsibility. There are two options. One is, option one, it is called, is at the level of the family and at the level of the individuals. The other option is for an entire settlement to be taken out of the forest. And in Kali Tiger Reserve, that is not being done. Actually, it has been attempted in Nagarhole National Park when settlements have been brought outside. Of course, there are a couple of families that have refused to leave, and I know that because I've done some work there. But here, at this point of time, in Kali Tiger Reserve, what they are offering is this option one package, which means that families that display a desire for relocation are given option 1, and that is on cash payment. And now I will just read from what I have written, because when you take it from the government records, there is some confusion. So what is this option 1? I won't go into discussions about option 2, that is moving an entire human settlement out, because right now it's not done there. And that's definitely a bigger challenge to the bureaucracy, etc. So how do they operate this program of voluntary relocation? See, if a family, this is exactly what is being done in Kali Tiger Reserve. If a family chooses this first option, that is families moving out, only cash compensation is provided to that family. I'm reading it out so that it's clear. For the purpose of payment of compensation, a family is defined as a unit in which a married couple with their minor children is treated as one unit, and every other adult member, male and female, single, widow, widower, divorcee, separated, is seen as independent, seen as an independent unit for payment of compensation. If, for example, a family has a married couple with 2 minor children and 1 adult daughter and 1 adult son, the couple and their minor children would form one unit for receiving the cash benefit of rupees 15 lakhs. Till 2019-20, this amount was only 10 lakhs. Now they have increased it to 15 lakhs. And the adult daughter and son would each receive rupees 15 lakhs. Of course, as I said, under option 2, the package involves an entire village moving to a new location chosen by the forest department. But this arrangement also includes provision of agricultural land and a dwelling place. And the department is also committed to providing infrastructural facilities such as access road, irrigation, drinking water, sanitation, electricity, telecommunication, community center, places of worship, cremation ground. But as per the village relocation guidelines, the amount allocated as compensation for each family is similar to the payment pattern followed in option 1. But in Kali Tiger Reserve, only the first option is offered, and there is no alternate land area available to shift the entire village. That is just not available there. So these are the right now, what has those people who have been shifted under this option 1 category, where families have been shifted. Now, who gives money for this funding? From where does the funding for this relocation program come? It comes from National NTCA and Ministry of National Tiger Conservation Authority and Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change. They are the major sources of financial support. And now state governments, as you can see there, are also taking initiative to do this. And in our state, it is mainly funded by the government of Karnataka, NTCA, and Ministry of Environment and Forests. So now quickly moving to the other one. Sir, how much more time? Another 15 minutes. So this is the government policy, and I'll just skip this and go directly to the how does this program operate? That I think that we have to spend some time on this. Voluntary relocation program is done according to National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Policy of 2007. And there is a district relocation committee. I want to speak a little about this because I think this is where social science intervenes and our perspectives become important. Is constituted by government order. It's written here. So can I just go to the next slide? Composition of district level. I would request you to please take a look at this committee. It has members only from bureaucracy. My question is, first question, where are the people? Because we have been saying that when the application is submitted by a family, by families, it comes up before the committee, which is called the relocation committee, which has of course been formed as per this government order of the state. But I think that why it becomes important for us is to raise this question: where are the people? Of course, you have a chief executive officer of Jila Panchayat, and we're supposed to think that, this Panchayat Raj institution is a people's institution. However, if you look at this list, the thought that immediately came to me when I saw this was, I don't find anybody here who knows about the region, who knows the people, who knows the area, and who knows what the issues are. And given the fact that now there is an amendment that has been proposed, and that is that all these people should be taken off, and the entire responsibility should be given to Karnataka Forest Department. Now, I think that is a bigger problem because, there is no convergence between Panchayat and the department. This is something which I have also seen in that area. And if, for example, only the forest department is involved in deciding who has to relocate and why they have to relocate, and the decision left entirely to forest bureaucracy, my question is, even the what should I say, some participation that was happening from a people's institution like Jila Panchayat or the Gram Sabhas, etc., will go now, and it will become a completely bureaucratic decision. And given the fact that there is no convergence between these institutions and also between the forest department in most places and other institutions, because there is a power dimension here, they will not allow generally others to intervene. And that this, reminds me of an article that I have read, which said, can forest laws be made only by forest bureaucracy? Why are we projecting forest rights as something opposed to community rights? So I think this is an area where perspectives from people who know the region, perspectives of people who understand the value of grassroots level participation need to be brought in. And the next here, it gives a quick, when if you take a quick look at this, it tells us how the process of voluntary relocation happens. The first is families give applications. And now I also must clarify that this program, as it is being operated today, is completely a state program. There is no civil society involvement, at least in on paper, on theory. Of course, they are taking help from some community leaders or couple of NGO representatives who know that region, who are working with people. But in theory, other than the state department, other than forest department, other than those whose names we saw right now, no person can participate in this program. So because I also know for certain that a kind of for somebody to accept to relocate, there is a kind of talking that is necessary, and whatever can be done is being done at an informal level, and it cannot be official. So you quickly see that families submit an application. All these processes have to be gone through, and then it will come up before the committee. And once a family is approved, a memorandum of understanding is signed between the family and the member secretary and the director of the Kali Tiger Reserve. Families have to give documents, and it is one good thing is that there should be a joint account in the name of the spouses, and they will give a first installment of 10 lakhs out of this 15 lakhs to all the persons who are eligible. And they have to they have to purchase land or house within 6 months after payment of the first installment. And the second installment has to be given, only after they move out of the Tiger Reserve. Now, coming to before I just talk about our findings from this study, what are the key questions that I thought were important? One is, how voluntary is this relocation program? I've already raised that earlier. And what is the nature of the impact of relocation on the forest? Now, it's very important to ask this question. I look at the relocation impact from two angles. One is its impact on the forest, because we're talking of conservation, and the other is its impact on people. Has it really enhanced the quality of their life? Is another question that I want to look into, because why do people want to relocate? They have, of course, certain goals, and to what extent are these happening? And lastly, I said nature of intersectionality between caste, gender, location, socioeconomic profile. What I mean is, you see, it's important to ask this question: who relocates first? Is there a caste angle to that? And gender, of course, our own study, looking at the impact on women has shown that it has impacted them more severely than males in their families. I come to that later. And the socioeconomic, why did I say location? See, even within the forest region, the tiger reserve, you can see that those who are in interior areas, those who are in small hamlets, those who are completely deprived of any kind of amenity are more eager to go out as compared to those who live closer to the main road. Or this is something common sense. Anybody can guess this. And so, exposure also is something we looked into. Exposure to the world outside is very important to decide what advantages do I get when I move out, and what am I going to also lose whatever little I have. So the 4 questions are: is it really voluntary? 1. 2, how did it impact the forest, and how did it impact people, and who has moved out, and why have they moved out? And I must also make it very clear that this program has been in operation only now for 10 years in this particular reserve. So there is also a feeling that it may be too early to talk of relocation, but I am of the opinion that it is very important to make timeline studies starting from now. I think this is where the role of social science becomes very, very critical, because, okay, what happened in the first 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I think it's important for us to study. So this will give you an idea of the Kali Tiger Reserve, which was earlier called, the Dandeli Wildlife Sanctuary and Anshi National Park, were 2 separate entities. They have now been merged, and it's called the KTR, or the Kali Tiger Reserve. And this is how it would look. And so this is our locale. I just said to give a framework for whatever we are study we try to do there. There are 3 dimensions. One is the locale. Where is this study located? It is located in the Kali Tiger Reserve. And the next more important thing is also about who are the people? Who are the people who are there? And who are the people with whom we have dealt with? May I please? Yeah. So this, was the population in the Tiger Reserve, inside the reserve, according to 2011 census. But let me clarify that since, the recent census has not been held, this number has increased. According to available information, the number of families may have now gone up to about 8,000, because you can't say that it's the same number today as it was in 11. But by and large, this will give us an idea of the number. The number of human habitations within the Tiger Reserve is 511. 511 small settlements or relatively bigger settlements are there. But according to the latest information available, this number 6,773 families has gone up to about 8,000, because people keep migrating. There may have been families also might have disintegrated in that region. This is a trend that you are seeing now, that many extended families are separating, and they would like to be on their own. So the numbers have to be taken in the context of the fact that the data given here is relatively old. However, as per information available with people who are working closely with this whole program, it's around 8,000 families now. And how did we talk to these people? In order to study the impact of relocation, we have used these 4 methods: interview schedule, FGDs, narratives, and discussions with members of KFD and voluntary groups, because this is a completely qualitative study. And it's only by talking to people that you will get to know what their experiences of relocation are. So our team, which continues to work in that region, many times, not with any kind of sponsorship or not having any official support as such, but we continued, my team and I, my students, and I continue to go back to that region, because talking to people, sharing experiences, learning from them is always something that has been very close, as I said, to my heart and to our team. So when we talk to them by using these methodologies, we got the information about what relocation has meant. And so this will probably the next one, sir, because this is not very clear. So no, I'll just repeat up. This will give an idea of the number of families that have relocated, and about 300. Just see the. This will give us an idea. As per our information, there are about, even if you take that original number of 6,000 plus, or this number of 8,000, you will see that as on date, in the 10 years that this program has been in operation, about 300 families have relocated. The rest are still in that region. They are still there. And why they are there and why they can be there, there are reasons for that. So this will, year-wise, if you see, during 2013 and 14, when this program was implemented, up and even the next year, the number increased. But then it started gradually declining till about 1920. But the largest relocation took place in 2020-21, that is just last year. And and also the groups that predominantly inhabit that region are the major caste groups are Devali, Gauli, Kunbi, Maratha, they say. And the other groups are Bhandari, Blacksmith, Devali, Gauli, Havyaks, Kunbi, Madiwal, Maratha, Nair, SC, ST, Wakliga. So these are the groups that live in this the Kali Tiger Reserve area. So if you look at the pattern of who has gone, the largest number of families that have relocated are from this group called Maratha. See, as a social scientist, I think this is also a very important issue. That is what I meant when I talked of intersectionality between relocation and caste. So those castes with the Havyaks, for example, those who have better exposure and those who are depending less on the forest and those who have more connections outside are the ones who are more eager to leave, as compared to those whose lives are centering around the forest. So among those who have left, the majority so far of those who have left so far, majority are from the Maratha caste. And this again, Maratha, includes several caste groups, because I have always been asking this question, to me, it sounds like a very kind of a general word. Who are the groups that are inside? They just give a list, but they say, no, here we all call ourselves the Marathas. And they definitely have a more advantageous socio-economic profile as compared to many other groups. So they are the ones who left the Tiger Reserve in the largest number. And as far as individuals, just today I got the information that as of now, the total number of people who have left is 974. That means it's come almost close to 1,000. And another important question, where have they gone? Because when we talk of relocation, the question that we ask is, where do they tend to relocate to? So this table shows that majority of them are in the same taluka. The reason I came to know was they prefer to be in known familiar places. But in the years to come, that will become a bigger issue now, because land is now, as I told you, I was just talking about this. See, when we started our work, that region was so remote. People were not prepared to go there or invest on land. But today, what an acre of land that costed 30,000 rupees in late 90s is costing 35 lakhs today. That is the current going price, 35 lakhs. That is because homestays are coming up, and more and more people are now again, that group called as absentee landlords, I call them, tend to buy property there. And so given this, I think 15 lakhs is a very small amount for a family to invest so much on land. So I suppose that will be an issue which those who are getting involved in relocation have to talk. So the only people who have gone outside are 4 families to Bagalkot district, still in Karnataka, and 44 have gone to Goa. There is a reason for this. I told you that many parts of Joida border Goa, and Goa has always been a place where they have looked for employment, especially during cashew picking seasons. Many families from Joida migrate to Goa, live there for 2 to 3 months. So Goa is a familiar locale for them. So I suppose that's also the reason why they have chosen. And Chandigarh in Maharashtra is the only other place where they have gone. Now, if you look at the last category, not yet moved, these are people who are in different stages of moving out. That is what I've come to know. They've all been given the first installment. Some of them are getting their houses ready. Some of them are getting their land ready, etc. But they will get their second installment of payment only after they physically relocate from that region. So if you just look at this, you will see that only 300. Now you might ask this question: 300 families only out of 6,000 plus or 7,000 plus have relocated. Why? What could be the reason? Between 2013-14 and 22-23, that is the current year, 300 families have been relocated, is an important factor. And all these are in 32 hamlets. And out of 151 hamlets, people in 119 hamlets are still there. And why are they still there? This is very important for us. See, in this region, in Uttar Kannada district, right from colonial times, there have been a multiplicity of forest laws. And, there is what is called the Canada Privilege Act, according to which, revenue villages and land that was used for shifting cultivation and what they call, the Sopin Beta, they were all enjoyed by the people. See, another very important area for us to do research in future is that there is need to completely document all the laws that have been formulated vis-a-vis forest rights or forest protection in this country and in this state itself. It's also true of other states, in a language that is simple, in a language that can be easily understood, not only by the people, but also by the implementing authorities. It's not that we blame them for everything. There are many times when the forest department and the state departments Dwellers Act, which has come into existence. Many times it's not implemented, yet they can be here. They cannot be sent out because in this region, what was called the Canada Privileges Act, which came into existence during British times, gave them the freedom to use certain parts of the forest for livelihood, for collection of minor forest produce, for agriculture, for horticulture, for animal husbandry, because the Gaulis, for example, who live in that region are cow herds. So when this is a big issue that needs to be looked into, when there is a provision for them to continue to live there, the question that we have to ask is, why would they go out? Why would they move out? But however, what are the reasons for these families that have left? Quickly, these are the reasons. Because this region lacks basic infrastructure and there is continuous human-animal conflict there. And all these issues, at least for second generation, third generation, they need to send them to schools. Initially when we started our projects, not a single woman that we came into contact with in the 40+ age group could understand a word of Kannada. They said, we have never gone to school. But that situation cannot continue, because with them losing rights on lands, with their forest shrinking, with families, breaking up, and land fragmentation. I know, for example, the student of mine, I can give an example. His grandfather, had an undivided property of 60 acres of land in Joeda, in the forest. Now, he, as per their information, had about, I think, 18 or 20 children. And each got only 2.5 acres. And now I know the student of mine with whom, who is part of our work, his father got 2.5 acres. They have 5 children. So how much will each one get? So now they are saying, why should we be here? So those with smaller land holdings, those because of families, dividing, they kind of feel that if there are 4 adults in that family, they would get 4 into 15 lakhs, which is quite a big amount. So they would, if at all they have decided to go out, it is for these reasons. Natural resources are very rich, but no basic infrastructure. And the other, this picture will just show you the kind of situation that exists in many of the hamlets there. By and large. So now last 2 quick questions. What is the impact on the forest is a question I raised. Based on our interactions with the forest department and with people who know the region. Now, I'm neither romanticizing this, nor am I glorifying any of these, but what has been observed, and not just here, in other studies on relocation, these are some of the impacts that have been felt. One is natural forest restoration, and free movement of wildlife is something that I myself have seen in certain areas. Then land encroachment virtually, they say, has stopped. Cattle grazing, because all forests, this is not something typical of this region, has reduced. And reduction in human-animal conflict, cattle kill, crop damage is one of the impacts on the forest. This is, and of course, I don't know, reduced patrolling and monitoring costs has another angle. Maybe for the department it is saving, but if you remove those patrolling units, it is possible that there will be more poaching, as I have said, possibilities of increasing in poaching. And the another thing that we were noticing is indigenous knowledge is slowly disappearing because of relocation. We would meet people initially, young children, who would identify at least 100 to 150 varieties of plants and trees, because there was that interaction. They lived in that environment, but now that is slowly disappearing. So these are some of the impacts. There is, if you want to use the word, has it done, is it done good for the forest? These are some of the changes that are being noticed. As I have already told you, in this particular area, it is the first decade of relocation in Kali Tiger Reserve. And from here, we should follow up. And the last but one point I have is, what is the impact of relocation on people, not just on the forest? These are some of the impacts that we have noticed. Ownership, now they are happy that they can own the Pakka house, because you saw that most of the houses in that area were like that. So better basic, the access to education and healthcare are the electricity and road. I think these are the four major reasons as to why those who have opted to go out really opted. And increased aspiration for better standards of living. Now, they were even landless families have now at least the satisfaction that they have got land ownership. That is what they said. And reduction, of course, in human-animal conflict. And of course, the negative impacts have been already brought out by studies. You see, one quick thing I want to say is, they now don't have continuous access to drinking water, because this is a region where there were so many rivulets, small streams from where they could get continuous water. And this has put enormous pressure on women, because in the new locales where they have chosen to go, that kind of water supply is not there. And the other thing is, of course, shrinking land use, and traditional healthcare practices have almost have to be given up. Now they have to go to, using public healthcare is fine, but not all have equal access, and it's not affordable. Another thing is that, in that region, there was nothing called hunger till very recently, because the aquatic wealth of that region in all these small rivers, rivulets, streams, etc., was always there. But now when they went out of the forest, that has gone. So they have to buy food. Of course, common property resources, this is what many of these studies have also shown. Access to common property resources gets reduced when relocation takes place. And another thing that has been noticed, according to those people only, is, I'm not saying that people should not have motorbikes or Android phones or whatever, but the priorities of life have changed. And they feel that these are more important than some other things that were important for them when they were there. But as I have already said, we are not the ones to decide, sitting outside, whether, this is necessary for them or not. So the last one, the last but one, the previous one. So this is, I think I've already brought in these points. Who were the people who moved out? So the three important factors we found was region, exposure to the world outside, and gender was an issue. People from remote regions with small land, they chose to move out first. And relocation, the younger women, those who were single, who wanted to go to school and college, who wanted to get exposure to new ideas and new ways of life, were happy. But those in the 40+ age group kind of are experiencing the negative impact of this relocation with a lot of severity, because their dependence has increased. At least they were in a familiar region. Now they have been totally moved out. And the last thing I want to say is, where do we go from here? I think I've already said that timeline studies documenting the long-term impact of relocation on the forest and the people have to be initiated. And I think studies have to be, we cannot make any generalized statements. They have to be location specific, group specific, and whether relocation is need-based, whether it is required, why it is required, who really benefits and who does not, who loses and who gains, I suppose, is the context in which studies by social scientists are required to be taken up in a large number. Thank you. Sorry if I've taken more time.
No, thank you very much. And this is very, very good. You have provided some kind of, you have taken us and then took us to the deep of this forest and problem, and then told us what exactly are the issues and other things. And then thank you very much. And then sir, would you like to make some remarks before I open it up for others? Sir, you are muted. Can you please unmute, sir?
Okay. No, I think This is a marathon presentation based on equally exhaustive empirical facts and study that Professor Indira has been doing for quite some time. I think it brings out a very useful insight on the problem of dislocation, allocation of particularly a tribal community. I won't dare to summarize it. I think it is better that we go into the discussion and question answer session. Yes, Dr. Rajshekar.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah. And then we have some, before I request those who are here to say, and then those who are online, I request you to raise your hand so that we can prioritize how many people are interested in asking questions, and then we can see. As of now, I have some 2-3 people here, and then yeah, 3 people, and then after we will take these questions, and then okay. Bala, Michael, and Professor Ajay in that order. Yeah, Bala,
Yes, sir.
kindly be brief in your questions
Yes.
so that your observations.
Thank
so that
you.
we can give.
Thank you.
opportunity to
Thank you,
more people.
madam. Almost you covered all the aspects which we are facing at present, even the forest department and conflict with the local communities. Because I'm involving with the forest department some committees, because of recently I received one TOR, terms of reference, from the forest department, exactly these KTR, Kali Tiger Resource and relocations. So now I'm reviewing the TOR. It's good, actually I can give some more comments returning to the forest department. That's one thing. Second thing means, as we know very well, since last 50 or 60 years, the development and the conservation, development and livelihood, it's always the trade-off. So I mean, what actually theory they are suggesting, we should go balance development and conservation, or development and the livelihood, but it's not happening in the reality. As we know very well, there is a lot of things are involving, like of institutional failure and of power and rights. These are the issues happening there. In the case of Kali Tiger Resource, which you studied, I shown there 300 families already they relocated from the Kali Tiger Resource to the somewhere. Really, they are happy. My first question actually, what they think, compare them the present and previous, which where they stayed. I think you have some good observation from the people in the context of food security or livelihood securities, in other all the things, the basic needs. Really, they are happy. That's the first basic question. How they are the institution giving the basic amenities to the people. That's the first basic question. The second thing, you talk about the compensation. I'm not happy actually with the compensation of in the 50 lakhs, 15 lakhs actually offered by the central government support from the, I mean, the state government support from the central government. As you also mentioned, the tribal communities, especially, they have huge amount of traditional knowledge, which is not properly counted in the many part actually, because even nowadays the international forum, they highly talk about the value of traditional knowledge. So once they relocated from the origin place, from the some, I mean, located somewhere, the traditional knowledge totally is failure for relating to the conservation of natural resources, because of that's a big contradictory things. So we are losing the traditional knowledge in terms of conservation of natural resources, in terms of climate change perspective. The second thing, my third aspect actually, why they want to relocate. You raised the question here. Really, they want to improve the tiger numbers. That's the first. Again, was my another question actually, because of I am also I mean raising many questions in the forest department. Really, they want to improve the tigers, because single digit, even India, we have the huge amount of tigers in terms of number in Asia level. So what type of what type of the development they want, really, that's a basic issue. I mean, I think in these are my actually my I mean clarificatory question.
Thank
One
you.
comment actually,
Yeah.
things which actually the recent years, I mean recent month, especially in Karnataka and Kerala, Maharashtra, they talk about the ecological sensitive zone. Even Karnataka, we have the huge amount of area in terms of forest compared to other states. So even the present government, they are not willing to implement the ecological sensitive zones. So they need the development. So they don't want to implement the ecological sensitive zone areas, which is highly contradictory. I mean, given by the standard government. So what is your perspective? The ecological sensitivity is totally missing in the presentation. Even Kali Tiger research also nearly 1,572 villages come under the ecological sensitive zone. More than 2,000, I mean 20,668 square kilometer. So in this case, in future, if you offer the 15 lakhs, those who want to accept, so the central government, state government, they want to give the 15 lakhs simply. So finally, the conflict will come again. So what will happen in the present and future in the context of livelihood and conservation? If they want to relocate, the state government and central government, they're ready to give the money. So these are the cases happening here. But compensation is not the fair. Compensation is not the suitable things. So what my suggestion even to the forest department, we need the proper land compensation for the people. That's a good things. Then we have to give the proper rights to access of the natural resources. It is highly neglected from the institution to the tribal communities. Okay, I'm stopped here. We have number of discussion.
Thank you, Bala. Yeah, and Michael, can you please unmute and then please be brief in your intervention. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. It was really pleasing to hear you, madam, and congratulations for undertaking this very important study. Yeah. So I have a few questions to you. The first would be in your description of locale, you have described about the categories of people that have moved out from the Kali Tiger Reserve, but you have not mentioned the number of population that are still living in the within the Tiger Reserve. And so I wanted to know what is the population or number of tribals living in that Kali Tiger Reserve. So
he has already mentioned, isn't it,
yes.
Michael?
I wasn't that clear to me.
Yeah. She has mentioned. Can you move on to the next question?
Yes. No. Yeah. Now the question here is, so what is the status of FRA implementation? Whether or not Forest Rights Act has been implemented or not? If it is being implemented, because it secures, because it secures their right to live within FRA within the Tiger Reserve. And secondly, so I wanted to know the reaction of the people. So you were talking about us poor people, poor communities are moving out from the Tiger Reserve, and somewhere in one of your slides you mentioned about large lodges or resorts are coming up. So here I can see some opportunity cost. What are the because the conservation paradigm in India that exists is we try to create inviolate space by trying to move out people, by not trying to include people in conservation. So when people are, there are many a number of studies or examples. People are moved out, but they welcome private lodges, private hotels, cottages. So what are the reaction of people here? My third question is, so you mentioned about one of the factors for people moving out is human-wildlife conflicts, and this issue might also come because of your another interesting objective that you wanted to study, that is whether after people's moving out of the Tiger Reserve, whether conservation is increased or not. So in my own particular study, due to strict conservation measures being implemented in Manas, the number of elephants, wild elephants, has increased, and that has resulted in human wildlife conflicts. But here my specific question to you is whether compensation, not the rehabilitation compensation here is whether compensation is being paid to the victims of human wildlife conflicts. Okay. And my last more question.
Kindly be
and-
brief, please.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
See, I mean, tribals, you mentioned about the traditional knowledge. Tribals have been living with nature, with wild animals or forests since ages. So here, what are the coexistence behavior, whether or not, despite all these infrastructural lackings and all these issues, whether or not they want to coexist despite their hardships? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Professor Ajay, she's our board member, and then very nice that you could join. Please go ahead.
Yes, some of the questions are already been raised, but what I am not clear is, ma'am, the 300 families who are located, how do they survive in their destinations? I guess many of them have already invested, as you rightly said, in some property or entrepreneurial activity, but there are also a few people who did not invest. So how do they survive, and what is their per capita income after relocation? And the second question is, are there any NGOs and civil society groups or pressure groups who work for these tribals in this Kali tiger forest, And the third is, you talk about the conflict between men and animal. Now that resorts are coming up, wouldn't that conflict continue? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for those very briefly put questions. Madam, would you like to answer them, and then I will take up other questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, sir, my first reaction is that many of these questions raised contain the answers themselves. And I think that whether it is your first question about are they really happy? Happiness is a very relative term. Okay. So whether somebody is happy or not depends upon what their expectations are. And I have also said that some of the probably the desires that they had setting up and having a house, pakka house, or educating their children, or getting better access to public health care, they have been realized to some extent. But again, when you talk of happiness, each advantage that is gained also may come with a price. See, when in nowadays, especially you talk of healthcare, it's definitely true that their access to public healthcare has improved. But nowadays, with the great shift that has taken place from the state to the private sector in the matters of healthcare, many of them have to spend more on, healthcare to here than otherwise they would have when they were inside. Because I think I also mentioned that they now they have no access to practice their traditional methods of healthcare, which are dependent on the forest. So it's kind of it's like, what is called a double-edged sword. Relocation is like a double-edged sword. How much of advantage you gain and how much of disadvantage that comes through is something that also will come out in the long-term study, because this is just 10 years old. I think regarding compensation, I myself said that one-time payment of 15 lakhs or 10 lakhs, as the case may be, is definitely not a sustainable way of supporting these families, because afterwards, what happens?
They are calculating for the compensation.
Pardon?
What basis they are calculating for the compensation?
What basis?
No, that is, I think, initially some guidelines they had, the land that they had, and all those things. But these are state policies, okay? Not in this region. In Nagarhole, it has been done. But it also has come with a lot of complaints and limitations, because when you relocate a whole village or a settlement or a hamlet to another place, again, often the choice of the people was never taken. In fact, there in Hunsur district, and there was this place called Solepura. There tremendous protests were there when they identified that place for relocation. But they didn't care. Finally, they relocated them in that settlement only. But, yeah, forcibly they took them. No, no.
I think we'll.
Okay, sir, then quickly.
Yeah.
Why do they want to relocate is, here in this place, I think mentioned that one of the reasons why the Kali Tiger Reserve, that the two parks were clubbed together and one national park tiger reserve was declared was the declining tiger population. And it is, and I think this question was also raised by our other friend. Have they really, you gave an example and said that number of animals have increased. Now, increase in the wildlife can bring conflict, but in some places it is true. They are saying that the presence of wildlife after relocation in some regions has increased. But then one has to wait and see for a longer period. And that's all. And your question about, thanks for raising this ecologically sensitive zones. 2 committees have been formed, Kasturi Rangan and Madhav Gadgil. And the state has opposed this. But what I understand is the state not being keen to implement the decisions of these committees which are recommending eco-sensitive zones is that is also, according to me, it is a populist measure. Because that indirectly or directly means that they are supporting, relocation. And so they don't want to incur the wrath of the people. So they want to show that they are pro-people and not want to move them out. That is my answer. I think regarding categories of people who have moved out, I gave the figures. And what is the status of Forest Rights Act? That definitely has given them leverage to continue to use the forest, but it is not implemented in that region in toto or even in fraction, because there are many issues that are being raised. One is absence of land records. To prove that you have to use that, the provisions of that act, you have to have records. And conservation has improved. I think I answered that question. Like presence of wildlife in some regions has increased. That is something proved. And is that all? And coming to Dr. Ajailu's question, yes, the second question about NGOs, yes, there are NGOs working in that area. They have been there for a very long time, working with local communities. But NGOs cannot be involved in this relocation project. I think I mentioned that it is completely a state-run program. At the most, what they could do is they can seek support from community leaders and those who can make an impact, to talk to people and encourage them to relocate by talking to them of what advantages this program could bring. But otherwise, yes, there are NGOs who have been actively working there. And then according to the other question that you have asked about how these families are living. See, some of them have got land, some of them have got houses, and they have invested on horticulture, or there are also those who have invested on other things, not necessarily agriculture or land itself, but they have got houses, they have built houses. Some of them have taken up jobs, etc. So there is no common pattern as such. Can I just take 1 minute and ask Jayanand, the director, my student from the area who is here to Jayanand?
Hello.
Can you reply to this question? This is Jayanand, director, my student about whom I was talking. He's from Joida and he's been working in that region for a long time. A quick answer to this question of what is the per capita income of these families. Helboda? Can you please tell?
Before relocation, the per capita income
After the relocation.
After the relocation.
it is
What is
difficult
the
to
income source or gain anta?
wage labor excess ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಮತ್ತು ತೋಟ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ minimum 6 years wait ಮಾಡಬೇಕು.
I think Not very clear.
ಅದು forest ಅಲ್ಲ sir.
ಓಕೆ, ಅದು ನೀವು ಒಂದು
Jayanand, it's
ಕೆಲಸ
not
ಮಾಡಿ,
clear.
ಜಯಾನಂದ್ ಅವರೇ ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದು ಬಿಡಿ. ಚಾಟ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದು ಬಿಡಿ.
What is the income of these families, per capita income of these families after relocation? One just general idea
General
you can
idea,
give.
yeah.
Clear, can't hear you clearly.
Okay, so shall I
Yeah.
invite, now may I request Shivanna to unmute and then ask question very briefly and pointed questions. Anyone else who want to
Yeah.
also? Yeah.
Thank you,
two
Mr.
more are
Chairman.
here. Yeah.
Thank you, madam, for a very interesting and very informative lecture. I think I have only two observations. One question is that you talked about only those who have relocated.
Yeah.
As a researcher, I would like to know what happened to others, because quite a good number of yet to relocate. So whether your research study collected any information about from them, why they are not relocating themselves? What are the reasons for that? Your reasons for relocation, but for not relocating themselves,
Yeah.
was a good point, I thought. The second is that I'm happy you argued for the involvement of local institutions like panchayats, civil society, but I'll be more happy if you make a strong case for that in the RD setup, at least for the monitoring. And third, I thought that the need for a benchmark of all this, both those who relocated, those who yet to relocate for them. Some benchmark will give a picture of both the groups. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Professor Sodi. Can you please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, very nice lecture. I basically belong to Rajasthan. There is Ranthambore National Park tiger.
Yeah.
So I have put up in the chat box also. If we talk about like Ali Tiger Reserve and other tiger reserve, particularly Ranthambore. So Ranthambore, there are some village people who are coexisting with the tiger reserve. So what do you think whether they have adopted different strategy compared to Kali or some other tiger reserve in India? Only one simple question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sobin.
Question is somewhat related to Professor Shivanna's question. It is like, what happened to those people who haven't moved out? More than that, I would like to know how many are those who haven't moved out, how many are the original inhabitants of that place? Because if you see your 300 and most of them are from the Maratha, I mean, I think they may be settlers earlier to that place. So what is the difference that you find in between the kind of attitude towards relocation from the settlers and the original inhabitant, if what I call them is correct? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Thorat.
No, I just wanted to add that, there was a question which inquired into the increase in the income, per capita income of the tribal after rehabilitation. The answer has not come because you obviously require study to estimate the income before and after. But I would like to only add and share that whichever year you take, whichever period you take, whichever way you look at it, the monthly per capita consumption expenditure, we don't have income data by social group, but monthly per capita consumption expenditure, which is a better indicator of per capita income, right from 1983 to the recent round of 2017, invariably the tribal comes at the bottom of the entire hierarchy. The lowest is for the tribal, followed by scheduled caste, followed by OBC, and then by the high caste. And there are variation about religious minorities. So I think even if rehabilitation might have improved, we do not know. And I think Indira obviously is very, very suspicious of that. The tribal remain at the bottom of the hierarchy, at the lowest hierarchy in terms of income.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Kirti?
Ma'am, with regard to your beginning, which is like, relocation for conservation, the same district is adopting port-led model, for development, Honavar Port, the recent protests about the loss of coastal livelihoods being lost and all that. It's still an ongoing protest. So will the forest department have an answer as why they want to relocate the communities, but they want to kind of build 950 crore worth projects that were at the mouth of River Sharabdi and all that. And second question is, in your like vast experience, what community conservation measures did you observe?
Sorry?
Community conservation measures
Hmm.
of the indigenous communities.
Okay, Reshna and then Professor Lakshmana, last question. Please go ahead.
So I just have an extension to Professor Shubin's question, that if you see that your chart of this relocation, that the tribal families are only 25 and the SC families are only 7. So if you consider them as the original, inhabitant of the place, that means they have not relocated themselves. They're still preferring to stay in their original habitat. So only those who are later entrants, they only prefer to rehabilitate.
Professor Lakshmana.
Thank you, madam. Really, I think I enjoyed from your lecture. It is really informative and innovative, and it is a rich source of information to the researchers who are working on the environment. Just I have a quick questions. Now, you just have told a one word, the stay homes. There is a tendency. Now there has been rising this stay homes, not only in that place, entire Western Ghats. So that how its impact on declining eco degradation, environmental pollution, and further, I think human animals conflicts. That is number one. Number two, whether the reallocation provided is made available even for the stay homes. You have told that 300 only households, but in case that reason, if they have established the stay homes, this provision is made for this stay homes also. This is what I want to understand. And if you have included all this information as you provided for this 300 household population and all those things, this is a really rich source of information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And no, Admal Kelvantri.
Shall I?
So yeah, please go ahead, and then we need to.
Okay.
Close off, yeah.
Thank you for all these. And first, shall I read this? Jayanand has sent this. For those, this is for Dr. Ajailu's question about per capita. For those who invested in horticulture, he says we need to wait for another 3 years after, because they have invested on areca nut and coconut harvesting. And otherwise, it's broadly between 30,000 to 40,000. So that again, I also want to add that the 10-year period, of which we are referring to is quite a short one, because the money that they have originally got from the department, 15 lakhs, I think a couple of them are still debating about how to invest. As of now, the pattern of investment, as I have seen, are on purchasing what you call as immovable assets, like house or land or other things. And there is also, you see, a tendency to get some of those gadgets, what modern technology has given. So, and I suppose this question becomes very relevant when the next generation, the younger people who have moved out, who are in college, who are in school, when they take up jobs. Earlier, as long as they were here, one of the major sources of income for them was wage labor. They were working either on plantations of landed families in that region only, or they would go to Goa for wage earning. So this question, we probably will get a definite pattern after another 10 years. This is my feeling. And quickly to respond to all these questions that have come, I think that one especially is on I'd like to start by talking about community conservation that was raised. I think this is the point that I was trying to make when I said that any impact of as well as both the forest and the people losing whatever advantage they had. So basically, community conservation is more advantageous to the forest. If I can give one small example, the Kunbi, for example, who are about 40% of the population of this region, they do not use certain types of wood for certain purposes while constructing. So this is not used for constructing a door. That is not used for making windows. This is not used for something else. One of the reasons was that by attaching a cultural value, and I want to bring this up here also, that it is very important for relocation programs to look at the cultural strengths or cultural values of these groups that they are dealing with. So by deciding not to use that particular type of wood, that particular species of wood for a certain purpose, I think they were trying to conserve the forest. That is an example of community conservation. As somebody living in a city, we others might comment, this is, I've heard that also. This is not superstition, why can't they use it? But I think behind that decision not to use one wood for making different parts of the house which they were constructing, or the shifting cultivation practice itself, is an example of community conservation. So when communities are moved out, when India, I think I referred to traditional knowledge, losing its influence. This is what I meant. And the other thing is about, the question that Dr. Subin and Sudeshna have raised about, this is about, will you? No, see, one thing is, in this region, most of the groups, traditional forest dwellers, have not been declared as tribe. See, in fact, the Kunbi, about whom I'm talking now, who are about 40% in this region, have been demanding that they be considered as a tribe. This movement started about 10 years ago, let us say. One committee, individual, whatever, was sent by the government to determine whether that status could be given. That person gave a report stating that they are modern and hence don't qualify. In fact, I would say that we told them, no, don't accept this. Put up your points and ask for a revision. So when people got together and demanded, they set up a second committee, which has now given a recommendation that they should be considered a tribe. And they are inhabitants of this place for several years now. And so the process is on, but you know how long it will take. And scheduled castes are in very small number in this area. The only place where what comes in that area now, you find very few families, because they are those who work in, the Ambika Nagar, Ganesh Gudi, the dam sites. So all of them claim that they are original. When they have been in the, see, even to use that forest rights tribal acts, you have to have 3 generations, 75 years in that area. So there's, I don't know, like original inhabitants versus those who came later. I think more research is required. But whether they want to leave or not to leave depends upon, as I said. And also I know, I have learned that there is now a lot of the people who are there have now been talking to people who have moved out. They've started asking them, what is it that you have now that you did not have earlier? So initially there are disappointments. There are also some good things that have happened. So I suppose, and I also, I think, mentioned that because of certain forest laws, which have given them the rights to continue to use that forest, many of them are not ready to leave because they are not very sure what will be there. As I think mentioned, they might even lose access to what they are getting here. But those who have moved out are those who also are less dependent on the forest, in the sense that they have, more exposure and probably live in, they can develop skills and can use those for finding better opportunities. And because it's, as I said, just a decade period, once this decade is complete and we move on to the next, a study of both pre-relocation, a comparative study of pre-relocation and post relocation must keep on doing. And sir, to Professor Shivana is saying, yeah, I agree that, but I think, sir, I mentioned right now PRI presence is there in that committee, which they have constituted. CEO of Jila Panchayat is one of the members. But I think that by that new amendment which they are trying to bring, where they want to remove all other institutions and give the whole responsibility to Forest Department, will only make things worse. This is my impression. And what is the, I definitely will agree that pre-relocation, post-relocation, those who are still there and those who are out, this comparative study needs to be done. This is what I was trying to say. Now, these are the areas where now social sciences must look into. And your question about, what did you say, the Sharav?
Ma'am, the same district has now
Yeah.
embraced, port-led development model by kind
Yes,
of, they're
yes.
planning to do it. So does the Forest Department have anything to say about it? Because they want to relocate these people for conservation, but they're actually doing, which is like,
Now, I think many of the decisions that they have been taking from long time are contradictory to each other. Okay. See this, whether it is the, all I would say is they are pro-neo-capitalist sponsored development. And, the typical idea there is that those who are, when big dams are built or when such projects as you are referring to are coming up, they would give people jobs and they would, it would create employment. Sorry. It would bring more income, etc. So they have divided agendas. If you ask me, my response to that is, yeah, you're very right in asking this question. On the one hand, you talk of protecting the tiger, you talk of protecting the forest, you think you want to take the people away. But on the other hand, the same state machinery is also engaging in, building big dams, in port trust projects, etc. So this is the dichotomy. This is what people have been questioning. And I don't know whether I've answered all anything else. And sir, to your question of, you're talking of Idalva, the homestays. Homestays, also there have been few instances of human-animal conflict. But because, most of them they cannot have them in the tiger reserve. They're all outside. But when definitely wildlife increases, there is a possibility that they would come there. Now, of course, there are officially they have permission to take the people who come there on forest walk, bird watching, all those things. But it may come, but not to the extent, because there are, at least they make a conscious effort to see that people who come there, and they don't come for a permanent stay, don't venture into wildlife areas. But you can't completely rule out human-animal conflict, but they don't come in the tiger reserve. Well, they're not allowed to do that inside. No.
Thank you very much, madam, for this.
I don't know.
So your lecture has generated considerable interest, and then we learned that the relocation is not voluntary. Okay.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I mean, even where it is voluntary, I think the possibilities of better life chances, as I call that, as I mentioned, electricity, road connectivity, school, at least for the next, and also intergenerational studies are required here in this
that's true.
area, because there is also generational, the laws of certain cultural values and cultural practices have to be seen in that context. So whether, when I think they are taking, those who are really going out are those who have decided that they would really lose nothing by trying this.
Okay.
The fact that large number of them are inside is basically for two reasons. One is they can continue to use the forest. And as I said, there is enough wealth there, aquatic wealth is there, minor forest produce collection is permitted by the act itself. So they would like to do. So there is now a talk going on, and unless they are convinced that those who have gone out are leading better lives, they will definitely take more time to take that decision.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam. That I think we cannot agree more that some studies are needed. There's
Yes, sir.
longitudinal studies to assess the real impact or real effects of this relocation, whether it has really was answered to conservation or whether it has resulted in greater good for those who have relocated, for those who have stayed back
Great.
actually. So I think that is something which is an outstanding question which needs to be done. And then thank you very much for taking up a topic which covers, which basically touches the socio-economic change, because that's the institute, that's what for the institute stands. Sir, would you like to say anything before
No.
we thank?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
we just profoundly thank Professor
Yeah.
Indira
Yes, sir.
for
Pleasure
the
is mine, sir. Thank you
wonderful,
for being here.
wonderful
So,
presentation. Yeah,
thank
on a
you very much.
very deprived group of Indian society.
Good, sir. So thanks, sir. Thank you very much. And then I'll ask Mr. Tirupati to tell thanks. Please go ahead, Tirupati.
This is the time to come out from the tiger forest. So we are relocating from forest to our campus now. So this is a good opportunity to say out of thanks formally. So I'm begin with what I wrote it formally. So good evening to everyone. I'm grateful for the opportunity to give a vote of thanks on this occasion. As we successfully come to the end of the 12th Jubilee, Golden Jubilee lecture series, let me take a privilege to thank all those who have been part of this occasion. First of all, I would like to extend my grateful thanks to Professor Lakshman for introducing our speaker today, Professor R. Indra. So further, I would take opportunity to thank our chairperson, Professor Sukedev Taret, and Director Professor Rashikar for successfully moderating this seminar series. And most importantly, today we got opportunity to listen to a very insightful and thought-provoking lecture on relocations. So we got some answer for this conservation also. So we thank Professor Indra for delivering to us a very comprehensive lecture on this important theme. I would also like to thank Satish Kamas sir for providing technical support to us for the smooth conduction of this lecture. Before concluding my vote of thanks, I would like to thank the supporting staffs for facilitating the smooth conduction of the Golden Jubilee lecture series so far now. Lastly, I convey my thanks to all the participants, both online and offline, for attending the 12th Golden Jubilee lecture series today. Once again, I place on a record of our sincere thanks to all those who have been an integrate part of today's lecture. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, sir. Bye, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. Okay, bye, Professor Ajay. Thanks a lot for joining.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ma'am. Ma'am, bye. Sir, bye.
I want to thank sir for telling me about Ranthambore.
Yeah, that's Professor Sodi actually. Thanks a lot. Yeah.